The first gun in my 4-gun set I want to talk about is the 22. And for those of you that missed previous videos, I'm just putting together 4 firearms that I'll need this year to hunt everything I could possibly want to hunt. So this is my set of working guns. And for me, that's 4. That's a shotgun, a 22, and 2 centerfire rifles. And with that, I'm good for anything. Now, what you need, well, that's up to you. All right, 4 is perfect for me. And the first one I want to talk about is the 22. And that's because it's squirrel season right now and I'm ready to start using it. But I had a few things I needed to do to it. I actually bought this one last year. And I've been working on it here in the shop today. And here's part of it. The stock's in the house right now with some clamps on it and wood glue drying. Oops. But you'll see that in the next video, what's going on and so forth. I was just putting a new trigger on here and changing scopes and setting it up. Again, we'll talk about that in the next one. But today I just wanted to talk about picking a 22. And, this is one of those, it isn't complicated. You can choose just about anything for small game, but I think the interesting part's understanding ourselves and how we think and how we change and so forth. A lot of us started out hunting small game primarily with 22s as kids. Not all of us, and some of us started hunting as adults. But those of us that started hunting as kids, at least for me anyway, I was hunting for the meat. I wanted to bring home a mess of squirrels and clean them and then have my mom or grandma cook them up, and the family's eating squirrel that I contributed. I felt good about that. I was proud of that. All right. Well, as I grew up, and this is the same for most of us, we go to centerfire rifles and we start hunting big game. Well, our mindset changes. All right, eventually, for most of us, not all, but most of us, it becomes more about trophies and proving ourselves to the world, proving our hunting skills to the world. And that's what the trophy's for, to prove our skills. Plus, we also want to be challenged. All right, we want to go, hunt that rough terrain and be challenged by nature. And before you know it, a lot of us, we're traveling, whether it's to the other side of the county, the state, the country. For some of us, we're going to the other side of the world. And again, it's to prove our skills to the world and to be challenged by it. And that's fine. I mean, I think most of us need that challenge. I think it's just part of growing up. At the same time, we lose focus, and it becomes where it's no longer about providing food for the table. It's about the trophies and the proving ourselves. Maybe it's just proving ourselves to ourselves that, we can handle challenges. I don't know, but if you think about how much we spend chasing those trophies, well, it's pretty obvious it's not about the meat. I mean, we value the meat, from those trophies and, being challenged and all that. But it's not about the meat. Just, again, look at how much we spend doing it. Okay, it's about the adventure. All right. Well, every now and then something happens, like 2020, for instance. And it reminds us of how important providing is. That, it's not always about the trophies. And I got reminded of that a few years ago, just had some health problems. And it really made me question everything and how I looked at things and so forth. And that's when I decided, hey, I want to change how I'm doing things. I want to put food on the table. I want to go out to the woods and hunt, economically. And so I want to hunt in a sustainable manner. Okay, with the money a lot of us spend on hunting and so forth, for a lot of us, not all, but for a lot of us, it's not sustainable. We can't afford it even though we think we can. All right, so I wanted to get back to that putting food on the table and doing it in a way that's sustainable for my lifestyle. And a big part of that's getting back to small game hunting. So I'd had this old 22 here for a long time, and I've talked about this one before, but I got this when I was 12 or 13 or so, and a family friend, his home had burned. And this is one of the few firearms that survived the fire. And it didn't look like this when I got it. I restored it, but I've had this a lot of years, and it's been a wonderful rifle, but I wanted something with the scope on it. I can't see the iron sights like I used to, so I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get a 22. I'm going to update. And this time, unlike when I was a kid, I could afford almost any 22 I wanted. And so I really started looking at all the 22s and options. And what I quickly realized, for squirrel hunting, small game, you can pick any 22 you want to. And there are so many great choices out there. Any action, pump, bolt action, single shot, lever action, semi-auto, any action you want, there's a 22 for it that'll be perfect for small game hunting. And in my case, I was looking at all the different ones and trying to figure out what I wanted. Well, one day a friend of mine, Joey, that was in the 243 video, he called me up and he said, hey, let's go to a gun show. So we went to a gun show, and it was in the nearest big town to us. And I looked and I looked and I looked at a lot of 22s that day. And I just didn't see what I wanted. So we left, and on the way home, he said, hey, let's stop by this pawn shop here. And I had never been there. Okay, well, we'll go see what they have. Well, it wasn't your typical pawn shop. This is more like a high-end gun shop for used guns. I've never seen that many number ones in one place. And they had one section that it was just 22 rifles. And I looked, and the very first rifle I saw, well, it wasn't this one. The very first rifle I saw was a Winchester Model 52, and that gun was gorgeous. And we'll just say those get your attention. Now, I said I had enough money to afford almost any 22 I wanted. I didn't have enough to afford that one. But there's a reason those cost what they do. That's probably about the finest 22 ever made. That's why they cost what they cost. But right beside it was this one. And this is a Remington 581. I know it's a little tough to tell without the stock, but it's Remington 581. And the reason I picked this one was mainly nostalgia. When I was young growing up, my pappy, my great-grandfather, he had 3 firearms. He had 2 old single-shot shotguns up on the wall on a really simple gun rack that only held 2 guns. And in the corner behind the coat rack, right at the front door, he kept a 22. And he used it to shoot squirrels out of pecan trees in the front yard. And I just always thought that was just the best looking 22 ever. It was simple, it wasn't fancy, there wasn't anything on it not needed. But it had clean lines and it looked good. And I don't know, I'll never forget it. Well, when I got this one, I kind of felt the same way about it. There's nothing fancy about it, but it's got clean lines and it looks good. And what this had in common with Pappy's is they were both Remingtons. His was a slightly different model. His was clip fed, whereas this is single shot, but they were pretty much the same gun. And this one has served me well, and obviously he had some age on him when I was little. So durable, well built, functional 22. Well, when I saw this 581 sitting beside that Winchester, that was what I saw. When I get the stock back on this one tomorrow, you'll notice the family resemblance. Very similar. Clean lines, simple, nothing fancy about it, but it's a good gun, accurate, and it should last. And one thing I really like about the 581s, it's really similar to the 788s that I think they started making those around 68, late 60s, and they made them up through the early 80s. Well, the 788s were a budget deer rifle basically, and they only came in short action cartridges. So 308, 243. They made a few in 30-30. I think they made a few in some of the pistol cartridges, 44 mag. But the short actions, you know, lower power cartridges. But they had rear locking lugs. And the 581, almost identical to them, well, it has rear locking lugs. And most 22s do not have a locking lug on them at all. Or, excuse me, they have one, and it's the bolt. This old 514 here, there's no locking lugs on this. The bolt is the single locking lug for it. And that's the way most 22s are. All right. This one has 581, it has 6 locking lugs. All right, so it's a little overkill. But I think that's part of what helps give these their accuracy, and these are known for being extremely accurate. All right, and I wanted an accurate 22, plus it being Remington and that just holding a special place for me. When I saw it, I knew that was my gun, and I went ahead and purchased it. And it's got some other features I really look for in a 22 just for hunting. All right. This one's got a 24-inch barrel, right? Same as this one. Now, the 24-inch barrel on the 22 does not help you in velocity. It actually costs you a little bit of velocity. So the Ruger 1022s, they're 18.5 inches. You're going to get a little bit higher velocity from that because that's about perfect for a 22. A 22 having a small powder capacity, small case, it burns up all its powder at about 16.5 inches. Anything after that, and you're actually starting to slow down a little bit. But these, with the longer barrel, they're extremely quiet. And I really value that when I'm hunting. I don't want to scare the squirrels, you know, further down the hollow if I don't have to. Makes it a little easier. Plus, these longer barrels that on the 22s with such light barrels, they balance really well. And this 581, it's a light rifle. It's not too light, but it's about the perfect weight, you know. So it's just a great squirrel hunting rifle. Again, it balances well, it's light enough to carry long distances. And I tend to cover some ground when I'm squirrel hunting. I use that as an opportunity to scout for deer in the off season a lot of times. So I do cover a lot of ground. It's extremely accurate, so it's a great option for me. And again, that nostalgia factor. Now, what you want in a 22 for squirrel hunting or small game, that would be entirely up to you. Again, there's so many great actions out there to choose from. And again, because we're not trying to prove ourselves to the world, it doesn't matter what you look like out there small game hunting. You're not trying to prove anything. So you don't have to wear the latest, most fashionable camouflage and, you know, have that, you know, 1,000-yard rifle and cartridge set up to look good for those selfies for Facebook and Instagram. I don't even carry a comb with me when I'm small game hunting because I'm not worried about making sure my hair looks good for those pictures. And that's the great thing about small game. It's just about putting some food on the table and just having a good time while you're out there and enjoying nature and so forth. And you are helping yourself out financially, and you're not, it's so much more, what's the word here? I don't want to say economical, but it's sustainable. Small game hunting is sustainable because you're not traveling for it. You're not going to those exotic locations on the, the other side of the county. You can do it really close to home. And for a lot of us, it's just going back to them same places we small game hunted when we were kids, because small game's still there. We just grew up and ventured out to other places, but for small game, you can do it close to home. You can choose anything to hunt small game with, and squirrels especially on a 22. But it is a valuable tool to have, at least for me in my set. Okay, because again, the last couple of years, but this year especially, it gave me a new focus, and as far as hunting for food on the table and doing it sustainably. So anyway, that's where we're at on this. And if you want to see what it looks like with the stock, don't worry, in a day or two that video will be out. And I've got the trigger changed out, and I'll show you what all I did then. But and for those of you that aren't subscribed, if you want to see this in future videos, just hit the subscribe button and notification bell. And if you enjoyed the video, hey, hit the like button. And if you didn't enjoy it, hit the like button. Show YouTube, that you like hunting and shooting videos. We'll see you in a couple of days when we get this wrapped up and put back together. God bless. And have a good day.